So let's say that you have a loved one, someone that you know that is grieving. What can you do to support them? What are the things that you should do? And more importantly, what are the things that you shouldn't do? That's what we're going to talk about today is some of the do not do's when it comes to trying to support a friend going through grief. So make sure you stick around because some of them are not intuitive. You might think it's against common sense, but I'm going to explain to you why so that you understand, and that by the end of this video, you're going to have a better understanding and confidence of how to support a friend of yours who's going through some sort of grief. My name is Jolie. I am a life coach. I work with people that are going through grief, trauma, healing all the time. And there are some common mistakes that I see that people make when they're trying to support somebody who's going through grief. Number one mistake, number one don't do is don't. It sounds simple, but you're probably talking too much. To support someone with grief, it's not about what you say. It's really about your presence. So often what I see is people start talking too much and they think that support means they're talking and they're saying this story or I relate and oh that must be this hard and they start just talking and it's almost like a nervous reaction because they don't know how to sit with someone who's in real uncomfortable feelings. So number one is the most important thing you could do is actually don't talk that much. And really what you can do is just create a space, create an open space where you can basically tell them, I'm here for you and I'm here to listen. And just that can create even a space, even if they don't want to share with you, just a space where they can sit and just like feel their feelings for a minute. So many times people are just rushing them to feel better, rushing them to look on the bright side or whatever it is. You don't want to do this actually, right? If you see one of my other videos, right? Number one thing we can do with grief that slows down the healing process is shoving it down, judging our feelings, and it's like saying that's not allowed here. So actually, if you want to help someone that's going through grief, you want to actually create space for it. Like, hey, you're feeling really sad right now. That makes total sense given what you're going through. You're heartbroken, you're depressed, you're angry, you're confused, you're fearful of the future. All of these things makes total sense for someone who's going through grief. So the number one thing you shouldn't do if you want to be, an effective and supportive friend is don't talk so much. Don't talk so much. Just let them talk. Listen. And when they're done talking, give them even more space, right? And just let them know that you hear them and that is there anything else, right? You want to really hold space and really listen. We could have a whole nother video just on like how to listen because people aren't really very good at doing that these days, but that'll be a future video. So number one is don't talk so much. Number two, a lot of times people think that if they are going to talk, that saying that they felt something similar or their own story is going to be helpful. So number two is don't share your own grief story of how you relate and how you know how they're feeling. Not helpful, not helpful, not necessary, not anything. A lot of times what that actually does is it takes the attention away from their grief and it puts it on you. And in a really, depending on the case, it can actually have them needing to almost like be supportive through your unresolved grief when they're the one that's actually grieving and coming to you. So it can create this really backwards dynamic, and you don't want that. If you find that, let's say someone comes to you and they're like, my dog died, right? And yeah, it's we're all going through a really hard time, the family, and it's really sad, and I'm crying every day. Do not jump in with, oh my God, I'm so sorry. My dog died blank years ago, and oh my God, no, 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 no. Please do not do that. I think I'm moving around so much that my camera's having a hard time following me. But if the hand gestures help at all for you to know No, do not chime in. I'm having a hard time coming back to focus. Where am I? I swear I'm here. I'll put my hands down. I promise. I'll stop waving so much. Ah, shoot. Let me try. Will it follow me? Ah, there we are. Number one thing don't do is talk about you and your grief. And I get how you think that's going to be helpful. You're going to let them know that's not alone. You're going to let them know what you did, how hard that was for you, so they're not alone, so they know that you can relate. The thing is, I get that that's your motive, but in terms of how it actually affects that person, it puts all the attention then on your feelings and your probably unresolved grief. If you feel the need to jump in with your own story, and there's a lot of emotion there, chances are there might be some element of grief that you haven't processed yourself, and now you're taking almost advantage of their situation to say, oh, now I have an opportunity to share what I've been through. No, no, that's not what we do if we're trying to support someone who's going through grief. What we actually do is we create space and we keep the focus on them. So instead of piping in with your own story, right? Uh, Maybe just ask them a question of how are you dealing with that, right? What's that been like for you the last couple of days? Ask questions. Are you drinking water? Are you sleeping? Right? You want to keep the focus on them. Don't put it on you, because that lets them know that you're actually like attuned to them. You're not making it about you and your story, where actually they should feel bad for you because yours was more tragic. And at least that, no, 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 no. Please don't do that. Uh, Keep the focus on them. Uh, that's going to be number two. Don't pipe in with your own story. Number three, again, this is going to be a mistake people will make when they're talking. Number three is trying to either cheer them up or tell them that at least it's not as bad as it could have been. Ugh, I'm cringing a little bit just reciting these to you because this is so counterproductive to the way that grief works. Trying to logically just tell somebody to feel a different way or to logically just look on the bright side. It's the whole like think positive movement, which by the way, I never tell any of my clients to think positive. I think it's part of the worst advice that you could give somebody, because it actually helps people feel incentivized to push the bad feelings down. Like those aren't allowed, and I should be grateful. I should be happy. No, that's not the way grief works. You don't get over grief and you don't support someone through grief by just thinking your way to a better side where it's like, okay, I'm happy, they're in a better place. No, we go through grief and we heal and we process those feelings by actually feeling each of those feelings and letting it pass through us. It means we have to feel whatever anger there is, whatever sadness, whatever fear, whatever confusion, all of that. We have to let it pass through us to where then we end up on the other side where we can say, I'm at peace and it is really sad, but this is what happened. But we can say it from an authentic and genuine place, not this forced place of, like, oh, I'm supposed to feel better. You're right. At least this, at least I had them. Please do not say anything like that to somebody. Don't try to make them look at the bright side. Don't try to tell them how it could have been worse. Don't try to tell them that they should like cheer up. Again, what you resist persists. So basically, by you telling them all of those things, you're basically telling them this feeling they have that's of sadness or anger or loneliness, whatever, from this loss. You're basically telling them like, no, 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 resist that feeling, push it down, because that's uncomfortable. Push it down. And what happens is when we resist, it's going to persist because it's going to push back, right? It creates this tension where actually we don't really go anywhere. So instead of pushing and having it push back even stronger, what we do is we let it flow through us. And the better we get at that, actually the quicker it all passes through us. So that would be, I think we're at number three. Yes, please don't try to cheer them up. You actually want to just create space for them to feel what they feel. Number four, uh, don't assume. So a lot of what we've talked about so far is about asking them questions, letting them talk. You don't want to do the talking. But the key here is you don't want to assume that they do or do not want to talk about it. The reality is people process grief in so many different ways. Some people, like for me, I'm a verbal processor. Like it helps me to talk things out, to hear myself saying it, to hear somebody else mirror back to me what I'm saying and reflect that back. That helps me process it and actually move along. For some people, that's not them, right? And actually just like knowing that people love them, holding just space together, maybe that's more of what they need. The key thing that you can do, though, is not assume that they don't want to talk about it because it's emotional and it's hard. So you just ignore the subject. It's just like an elephant in the room. And you also don't want to assume that they do want to talk about it and pry and be like, oh, how are you doing? How are you doing? And keep going with this. So you might say, well, if I can't do this and I can't do that, what do you do? And the question is, or the answer is, ask a question, right? And let them know where you're at. Excuse me. So in other words, this might sound something like, hey, I know you're going through a really rough time right now. And, you know, I don't want to assume that you do or don't want to talk about it, but I just want to let you know that if you do want to talk about it, I'm here for you and I'm here to listen. Just let me know. But I don't want to, poke you on it if it's not something you want to talk about. Um, and then normally they'll answer and they'll be like, oh, like there's almost a relief when you bring it up because then it's not this elephant in the room they have to ignore or like feel like they're burdening you with. You can create it and just say, hey, I know you're going through a rough time and I'm here for you, if you want to talk about it. And sometimes right then they'll start talking and that's a good opportunity for you to listen, ask questions, right? Just like, yeah, and reflect back what they're saying, right? It's like, wow, that sounds really hard. And wow, I'm so sorry that happened. And just close your mouth. And I say that as nicely as possible because people don't need advice. They don't need actions and next steps. They just need someone to like be there and almost like witness. Um, there's such a power in witnessing. Um, so that's one thing that I would just so reiterate. Are we at number 5 here? I didn't count ahead of time, but number 5 would be don't uh, sometimes like I talk so fast and then it takes a minute to like catch up. It's like, those old cassette tapes that like you have to like most people don't know probably what that is, but like sometimes the tape would get round around itself and it has to like catch up to itself. That's my brain. Okay, number 5, the don't is don't uh don't look for, how do I best word this? Hmm. Don't look for them to validate you as a supportive friend right then. So in other words, don't expect them to validate you. Don't look for them to validate you. Let me explain to you what I mean. A lot of times when we're like really showing up for a friend, um, it feels good to show up for a friend and have them be like, oh man, thank you. Like you really showed up for me in the way that I needed. Thank you so much for helping me out. Oh, you're the best. Yeah, you had the best idea for that thing. Thank you. In those moments, we get such a rush of like dopamine that we feel so good. We're like, yeah, I was helpful. And they just validated it. It's like, yeah, they feel good. I feel good. Wonderful. If that's your motive going into grief is actually how you feel, supporting somebody with grief, I'd encourage you to maybe not, you're not going to be as effective. You're not going to be as helpful. So I'd really push you to check your motives here. That if your motive is really to help your friend, you might not get that dopamine hit of like feeling really good that you helped somebody. Let me give you an example here, right? Like oftentimes, if you're actually doing a great job supporting somebody and holding space for them in their grief, they may break down and cry. and they may sob. And actually, it may seem like they're sadder now than they were 5 minutes ago because now they just like let out all these feelings. Now they just said all this stuff, and you might feel like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, I did a terrible thing. I made them more sad than they were before. No. The thing is with grief is all those feelings are inside of them already. Whenever we can give somebody space to get some of that stuff out, and whether that's just talking about it, whether that's crying, whether that's like an emotional reaction, right? Where they're sobbing or they're angry or they're yelling, whatever, when they're able to get it out, that's part of the healing process. So notice at the end of that, you're not going to get the whole like, they feel better, you feel better, everyone's happy. But I guarantee you that by letting them just feel what they feel and creating space for that, where they feel safe to cry with you, they feel safe to open up to you, even if it's like really uncomfortable stuff that they're talking about. We have to see that in itself as the win. That in itself is the proof of you being a supportive friend. The more that they can open up and get out. And notice anything that they get out, there is nothing for you that you have to do with it. There's nothing you have to figure out. There's nothing you have to say to make everything better. The best way you can support somebody is by just letting them be where they're at and sitting there with them. And they're saying whatever they're saying. I don't know how I'm going to do this now, and life is over, or, you know, like they were the love of my life and now they're not here and I feel so lost, right? It's just to be there with them, right? And say like, hey, I love you. And this is really hard right now. And you're going to get through this. And I get that right now, this is incredibly hard. And I'm here. I'm here with you right now. And you can, there's a way that you can say that with your energy and with your body, right? By not trying to rush them along, or trying them to get them to hurry up, like just giving them space. If they're crying, right? You don't need to try to make them stop and feel better so that you feel better. Like just hold space and let them cry, right? A lot of times, me as a coach, a lot of my friends make fun of me because they're like, oh, how many people did you make cry today? And you know, it's a joke. It's not that I make people cry, but it's that I create a space. And I've just gotten really good at it because I've gotten so much practice and so much experience in these really traumatic and really painful moments of holding space in such a powerful way that whatever feelings are inside of them can come out and feel safe, where they're not going to be judged and dismissed or whatever. They can actually just like let it out, and I'm there with them, even just as a presence to let them know like it's going to be okay, right? We're both feeling these feelings. We're both going to breathe through it, and I'm going to be here with you on the other side, right? Like literally, right? Like after they're done crying, I'm still here, right? And it's like, all right, I'm here with you. That might sound hokey dokey or whatever, but it's powerful, and I see it every day. Every day, it's so powerful. So, yeah, that would be a key thing. Is if you're looking to get that validation, probably not going to get it, and you're probably going to approach things in an unhealthy, unproductive way than if you can just tell yourself, my job is to create space for them, and whatever comes up, that's me knowing I did a good job supporting them right now. It doesn't have to just be happy-go-lucky. I think of this, by the way, I know your motive is to help, and this is probably really hard for people. Excuse me. You can liken this to if you have any plants at home. I have a couple. Many of us have probably killed a plant or two in our lifetimes by overwatering it. I know I have, right? And if we're honest with ourselves, it's not that we wanted to kill a plant. It's that we were like really concerned. We really wanted to let it know, like, hey, I want to take care of you. And it's that like we're overdoing it. Grief is the same way. It's like we're overwatering them with what we say and what we're trying to do, and it's almost like we're overwatering them, where it just extinguishes this ability for growth and healing and support, where we actually sometimes just add more to it, because then they realize, okay, you are maybe not the person to go to when I'm feeling these feelings, or maybe I'm just not going to open up about this sort of thing with you in the future. You wouldn't be the type of person that can hold space for me. So that's going to be the key, is to water them just right, is actually doing a little bit less talking, less telling your stories, less giving advice, and a lot more just listening, holding space. You can check in with them, ask them how they're holding up, letting them know you're here for them if they want to talk, not assuming, and also just being okay with whatever comes up and not needing to have it end with a happy something, or like them reassuring you that you didn't do something wrong to make them upset. Of course not. They're going through something, right? So we don't need to try to expedite their process and microwave their dish of grief, so to speak, when it's a meal. It's the way my brain works, right? It's a meal that's going to take a long time. You can't just microwave it. Um, anyway, if you have someone that's going through grief and they are really having a hard time and they seem like they're not taking care of themselves, you could definitely, suggest that maybe they talk to somebody. Let them know that there are options out there, whether it's a therapist, whether it is a coach, whether it is another professional of some sort who like really has those skills to be able to help them and guide them through those process. Or maybe it's you, right? Letting them know that you're there for them. That's going to be really key. I think that's it for now. If you have any questions about grief, about this healing process, drop them in the comments. I'm going to try to create some content to help you through that. For me, grief is something that I deal with every day, whether it's my own or through the people I work with. And it's to a point where it's not scary for me. It's not something I try to avoid, because I can see what comes out the other side is such healing and such beauty and such growth, and it's beautiful. So it's something I work with a lot. So, this topic is something I totally nerd out on and spend a lot of my time and my energy on. If you want more sorts of content like this, subscribe to my newsletter. I'll put the link somewhere below. This is a way that you can stay in touch and get more of these sorts of updates as they come out. And until next time, be that supportive friend, hold space, let them know you love them, and just listen. You'll be surprised what happens when you just listen and you don't have to have the answers and you don't have to fix anything. It's really powerful. Take care, everyone.